What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Life Outside the Box. Today I want to share the story about how I fractured my spine in the Dominican Republic. It was supposed to be a day of adventure and good times, and it definitely was. However, I also picked up a little souvenir to take back home. Let me tell you about how a day in the Dominican Republic, flying through the mountain roads on an ATV, ended with a fractured spine and a few other bumps and bruises. As you already know from my last video, I flew to the DR looking for a mix of adventure and relaxation, beaches, good food, and a little adrenaline. One of the excursions that caught my eye was a full-day ATV ride through the rugged mountain trails. It sounded great, but I had no idea my carefree adventure was about to have a crash ending. Everything started off smooth. I got a quick rundown from one of the workers, took a short ride to the meetup spot, and then we were off into the hills. The views were unreal, lush greenery, mountain trails, and that perfect tropical breeze that can't be beat. The day was going great. We were cruising along and stopped at a little bar on the mountain, and this is where I made some really poor choices. Like any happy fool on vacation in paradise, I decided to really relax and take in the scenery with a couple frosty 22-ounce beers. It was pretty hot outside, so those bad boys went down real smooth and fast. Along with those beers, I decided to have a smoke, if you know what I mean. And in hindsight, I know this wasn't a smart idea, but when I'm feeling good, I like to go for greatness. Now, these things spread out over a long period of time wouldn't have been so bad, but we were only at this bar for about 30 minutes, and I was feeling real nice by the time we left. Once the guide let me know that it was time to go, we mounted up and continued on. Our next stop was at this beautiful blue river, and we hung out for another 20 to 30 minutes, during which time I lost my sunglasses, which were protecting my eyes from the dust and dirt being kicked up when we were riding. They were cheap glasses, and since I was feeling nice, I didn't even make an effort to retrieve them, which, if you've ever gone off-roading on a dry dirt road, you'll know that it was a huge mistake. We got back on the trail, and I learned that the hard way. This tour wasn't a group tour, it was just me and one other guide, and he was moving. Despite the dirt and dust getting into my eyes, I was moving too. We started to hit this downhill section, and the road was uneven and narrow. I was going way too fast, and I saw the crack in the trail, but it was way too late. The front wheel hit the crack in the trail, and then everything was like slow motion as I flipped over the handlebars. I landed on my back, and the 600-pound four-wheeler landed on top of me, pinning me to the ground. So here I am laying on my back, pinned under this ATV. I look up the trail, and I couldn't see my guide. I wasn't feeling any pain at this point, so I tried again with everything I had to get the ATV off me. But in no time, my guide had realized I was no longer behind him, and he came blazing up the trail. He helped lift the ATV off me and helped me up. He was very concerned to check me out, and I assured him that I was all good, and since I wasn't feeling any pain at that point, I really believed it. We worked together to flip the ATV back onto the wheels, and he assessed the damage. It took him a few minutes to get it started, and I'm not exactly sure about how extensive the damage was, but he decided to switch ATVs with me. Once we got resituated, we continued slowly on the trail and made it back to the meeting point. I was expecting them to assess the damages and charge me for the repairs, but I think he was just happy to have gotten me back to the place in one piece. I gave him a big tip and went on my way. I didn't call for an ambulance or go to the hospital despite having travel insurance. Being one to just tough things out, I hopped on my moped and went home. By the time I got there, the pain and swelling had really started to hit me. My forearm was scratched up and swollen. My thigh was swollen and the outline of massive bruises was starting to appear. And the middle of my back was hurting, and it hurt to breathe in deep. With all that going on, I just decided to drink a few beers and have another smoke and go to sleep. I woke up hurting real bad. Just sitting up made me want to cry. I'm not a fan of hospitals, so I just decided to head to the pharmacy and get something for the pain. I grabbed a box of 50 milligram prednisone tablets, and if you know a lot about prednisone, you know it's not meant for long-term continuous use. I knew about prednisone, but I was unaware of the negative effects that long-term use could have, especially with such a high dose. I continued to take the 50 milligrams a day for the next 3 months while I was in DR, and I felt absolutely fine. I continued scuba diving 3 times a week, dancing, and doing everything else I wanted to do. Fast forwarding to when I was back home in the US, and prednisone, unlike in the Dominican Republic, cannot be purchased without a prescription. I knew that to stop taking the prednisone, you had to taper off of it. You can't just stop that stuff. I brought back a 90-day supply, so I had enough to taper off of it and still have a little bit left over in case of an emergency. Excruciating. I couldn't sit up from laying down, so I finally asked for help. Just kidding again. I wormed my way over to the end table, grabbed my medication, and chewed up one of those bad boys. And within an hour, I was able to get up from the floor and get back to normal. I figured that I had tapered down too quickly, so I started out over after a week, gradually dropping down the dose until I stopped taking it completely. Now at this point, I was in a bit of a predicament. I was running real low on my supply, and I had to make a choice. Either fly back to the Dominican Republic to re-up my supply, or go see a doctor that'll hopefully write me a prescription. Now for real this time, I decided to go see the doctor. I explained my predicament with the medication, but I didn't mention anything about the crash in the DR. When I told the doctor how much prednisone I had been taking and for how long I had been taking it, her eyes got real wide. She was baffled and questioned how I even got the medication in the first place, so I told her I bought it while I was out of the country. She agreed to help me out, but first she needed to consult with her colleagues and with the pharmacist about how to proceed. She ended up giving me a prescription with enough that I could taper off the prednisone, and then sent me for a bone density scan because of how long I had been taking the medication. She also sent me for x-rays and an MRI, and once the results came in, she gave me a call and asked if I was aware of the fracture in my spine. Now by this time, it had almost been 9 months since the crash, and it was like I traveled back in time to the moment that I flipped the ATV. No, I said, I wasn't aware of the fracture in my spine, but I'm pretty sure I know when it happened. Turns out I fractured my T11 and T12 vertebrae, and that was the cause of all my pain. They started me on a safer med for the pain, and I'm scheduled to go see a spine specialist soon. So we'll see how it goes, and if it's story worthy, you can be sure I'll give you the update. Overall, this wasn't just an accident, it was a little bit of a wake-up call. I played a little too hard, made some dumb choices, ignored the warning signs, and let the adrenaline do the thinking. And the truth is that I'm extremely lucky, and if that crash had gone even slightly different, I might not be standing here now. I'll think more about safety in the future and make better choices, but the adventure doesn't stop. I'd rather go out doing something crazy and exciting than to wither away in the house living life inside the box. Thanks again for tuning in. Post any questions you have in the chat, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see y'all on the next adventure on Life Outside the Box.